Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 5 of Debatables 2.0, which is being organized by the Somaiya Debating Society in collaboration with TEDxSomaiyaVidyavihar. I am Abir Syed, and I'll be a presiding officer. Mr. Kaushik will be chairing this debate. I hope that the format is clear to you all. I'll go over it quickly. First up, we'll have the first speaker from the proposition, followed by the first speaker from the opposition. Both these speeches will be of 4 minutes each. This will be followed by a rebuttal round, which will be 7 minutes long, after which we'll have the second speaker from the proposition, followed by the second speaker from the opposition. Again, these will be of 4 minutes each. Speakers, please note that you'll have 3 minutes to put your arguments forward, after which you'll get exactly 15 seconds to wrap up your entire speech. Anything you say after this will not be considered by the chair. Lastly, we'll have the concluding speech from the proposition followed by the concluding speech from the opposition. Both these speeches will be of 2 minutes each. Alright, so with that done, I would like the speakers to introduce themselves. First speaker from the proposition, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rahul Luthra. I'm from the first year in KJ Somaiya College of Engineering, and I'll be the first speaker for the proposition today.
Thank you, speaker. Second speaker from the proposition, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Anmol Arun. I'm from first year KJ Somaiya College of Engineering, and I'll be the second speaker for proposition this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker. First speaker from the opposition, could you please introduce yourself?
And I'm from KJ Somaiya Science. I'm a second year student of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, and my preferred pronouns are she or her.
Could you please repeat your name?
Rutuja Vaspute.
All right. Thank you, speaker. Now, second speaker from the opposition, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nakshatra, and I'll be the second speaker for the opposition today.
Thank you, speaker. All right, I just shared this timer, so it will be easy to keep a track of your time. Speakers, please join the live. Now I would like to call upon the first speaker from the proposition to open the debate. Keep in mind you'll get 4 minutes to give your speech. Speaker, please start whenever I'll start the timer.
Are you going to be doing a stopwatch or a timer? You'll be doing a stopwatch? Okay, no problem.
You can start now.
Yeah. Let's start off by a simple breakdown of the topic first. This house, as the feminist movement, would oppose organized religion. The feminist movement, which is also known as the women's movement or feminism, refers to a series of social movements and political campaigns for reforms on women's issues created by the inequality between men and women. It can also be briefly explained as an activist movement with the purpose of women empowerment. Now, an organized religion, which is also often referred to as institutional religions, is a religion in which belief system and rituals are systematically arranged and formally established. Some of these religions are Christianity, Judaism, Sikhism, Buddhism, etc. In simple terms, these religions are more like an institution of religion that have a certain centralized or a decentralized structure, but are organized in their nature and in their own ways. Now one needs to understand why these well-reputed and huge feminist organizations are against such organized religions. Feminists regard religion as a patriarchal institution which reflects and maintains inequality in society where men can dominate. Religion acts as a patriarchal ideology that legitimates the oppression of women. Feminists view on religion as patriarchal, especially within said religious organizations. These feminist organizations have started a movement known as anti-religion, which is essentially opposition to organized or orthodox religions. It therefore involves taking a stand against said and opposing religions and practices of these religious institutions. The term anti-religion has also been used to describe opposition to specific forms of supernatural worship or practice, whether organized or not. The main cause of dismay among these women are the so-called religious rules or ideologies that are followed in such places, where women are not even allowed to simply enter when she is menstruating. I feel honestly if a woman is not supposed to revolt against something like this, I don't know how the opposition is going to be arguing today. How is the opposition possibly going to neglect this basic fact and say that it is not okay for women to be against such organizations that make up these rules? Have you ever seen a female priest or a person of religious authority in a temple or a church? No, right? This is the basic discrimination that women go through in such matters. They are extremely underrepresented. I would say at least there is a certain community of women who are bold enough to voice their opinion and come forth and speak up on the topic. And I think this is why it is justified that we are speaking for the movement, this house, as the feminist movement, would oppose organized religion. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Now I would like to call upon the first speaker from the opposition to give that speech. Speaker, please start whenever I start the timer.
We on the House opposition are gonna define feminist movement as what it is. Feminism is basically intersectional. Feminism includes women or the people of LGBTQIA community, basically anyone that has been affected and oppressed by the existence of patriarchy. How we define organized religion is a religion that has a set of rules that thousands and lakhs of people are following. And the policy at our house is basically we want feminist organizations to bring gender reforms to religion. Here's why. First of all, let's just have a look at what the status quo is. 85 About 85% of the world population is religious. About 15% people are atheists, and studies prove that women are more religious than men. So if we are representing these women and we want to bring reforms in this society, we think people would leave their faith and listen to a feminist organization? We think not. We would have to bring gender reforms through religion. Now, how do we think on our side of the house are we gonna do that? Because now there's this 85% of the world population listening to what religion has to tell. We have to highlight aspects from religion that are empowering. For example, if just a feminist leader goes and says that you should women should be allowed to dress like they are, people are not gonna listen to that. But if we give an example of goddess Kali, that she did not dress in a proper sari, or she went hunting for demons, she was called to hunt for the demon when Shiva couldn't, then I think these kind of examples, rooted in religion, rooted in mythology, have a greater impact on people that follow religion, and they are going to listen to this feminist leader. They are going to pay heed to what this person has to say. we talked about feminism being about the LGBTQIA community. People are not simply gonna listen that, you should not discriminate against people. Love is love. But if you tell them that in our religion, it has been told that Shiva had an avatar called Ardhanareshwar, which had a balance of feminine, female and male characteristics, and that this is rooted in our mythology, people are gonna listen to that. And because people blindly follow religion, we are gonna highlight aspects of religion that support women and people from LGBTQ rights. It is gonna have a deeper impact, and people who are religious and they are not gonna leave their faith just because you tell them to is gonna help. And that's and I would like to elaborate more on that.
Thank you, speaker. Now, with that done, we'll move on to the rebuttal rounds. This will be 7 minutes long and it starts with a question from the opposition. Proposition will take it up and they'll ask another question in turn. Speakers, please keep in mind there is no cross questioning, crosstalk, or follow up questions allowed. And if you feel your question wasn't addressed satisfactorily, that will be taken care by the chair in their verdict. Also, please keep your questions short and to the point. With that done, opposition, please go ahead and ask your first question.
Okay, so how does the gov bench mechanize feminist leaders telling people that religion is wrong and them believing the feminist leader?
So, as a feminist organization, we do not force anybody or say that yes, we are right, we are right. You have to believe us, you have to follow us, and you don't believe in your faith. We are not snatching away anybody's faith or religion, which is extremely opposite from what your orthodox religious leaders do, force conversions and things like that. We are voicing out our concerns and their concerns, and these concerns are interrelated, and we are giving them a chance to improve on their lives. And whoever wants to voice out their concerns, or whoever wants to have an opportunity to change the very situation that they are in or they are fighting for, is happy to do so.
My first question to the opposition would be that you claim that women are more religious than men. First of all, I would like to know where you got such a bold claim from. And secondly, anyways, moving past that, if you say that women are more religious than men, why is it that your said organized religion institutions don't allow women in their area when they are on their menstruation cycle? I mean, we definitely live in the 21st century. I think women should be represented enough, and this isn't even your fault. Their fault. Sorry.
We, the side of opposition, do not support regressive religious behavior. Our policy is bringing reforms through religion, and why we as a feminist organization do not oppose organized religion.
Opposition, you may ask your next question to the proposition. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're audible.
Opposition, you may ask your next question. Time is running out.
If the opposition doesn't have a question, could we go ahead?
Okay, how
Um,
on your side do you think the male population, how are you gonna influence the male population into feminist ideology?
So I think we have. It's not that how are we going to. I think we already have. We see a growing number of males in our movement, and to be really honest, it's not that we need to go and draw people to and force people to form our feminist or join our feminist movement. There is an issue. We address that issue. We voice out their issue, and we bring about change to that issue. Now, who comes in part or who plays along with us is certainly about the individual's choice and perspective, and we do not force anybody to be on part of to be a part with us. And I mean, I don't even need to list out the great achievements of such feminist movements. I think, as you might already believe, that in many countries the government is basically formed of greater male candidatures than female candidates, and even in such countries we as feminist movements have worked on multiple wrong laws, such as the abortion law, such as reproductive freedom. We have worked together, opposed these things which were barred by select religions, and we have brought out a change and in the so-called males of the society. Now, my retaliatory question to the op bench is that you said you do not support regressive behavior, but you have just discussed what will happen after this regressive behavior has been put under control. But whose responsibility is it to change this regressive behavior in this or in the organized religion, in multiple organized religions? It is whose concern to first change this and then focus about what can happen after the change?
I think we want to say is that if we take feminism and organized religion hand in hand, we will be able to start conversation about these things a lot more than if we go straight to attacking and like openly opposing the organized religion, because there will be hurt sentiments and it would be made about the argument will be made about hurting religious sentiments, and what a feminist organization wants to say will always be sidelined, because no matter what country, religion is regarded in the highest sentiment. Okay, my question would be, if you are saying ki it is up to a person that he wants to be a feminist or not, then how is feminist ideology spreading on your side of the paradigm?
It is spreading because people are liking it. People are liking what we are doing. People are liking the way we bring about change. And you talk about how they are sidelined and how we are supposed to be hand in hand with them. But as a state religion, as an organized religion, as an institutional religion, you are the sole religion in that jurisdiction, and therefore you ought to sideline us. Now, why do you want us to bring in such factors into our feminist movement, and how will they come hand in hand?
Okay, so the time is over, but to even out the questions, I would ask the proposition to ask their last question to the opposition.
An answer is required.
Yeah, I think we've already asked the question.
Yes.
I'm super sorry, can you just sum it up?
So in one line, my question is that how will in a orthodox organized religion, in an institutional religion, where in this jurisdiction that is the sole religion and you have to follow that, how can feminist how why do you want to bring such a thing into the feminist movement, which is open for all? If you want to join, you join. If you don't want to join, you don't join.
Yeah, because the people that are following organized religion are a lot. It's 85% of the world population. And if we want to spread feminist ideology, the way it goes through religion, and if we highlight aspects from religion that are feminist, more people would be open to listening it, hence spreading the feminist ideology.
Thank you, speakers. Now, I would like to invite the second speaker from the proposition to put their case forward. Keep in mind, you'll get 4 minutes to complete your speech. Speaker, please start whenever I'll start the timer.
So, talking about so the opening opposition made points about how religion is how feminist movement is an intersection of affected and oppressed people of all communities, and they can, and now, as we said, they can be joined by anybody. So in such a movement which is so free, which is so you can just see through it, and you can have your choices and your whatever you want to do in that. I mean, in place of this, you are trying to bring a certain ideology of an organized religion, an institution religion, a state religion, a force practice into our movement, which is there just breaking the base structure of what we are. And as the op bench themselves said, that the feminist movement will be just sidelined in this, and we cannot then do. There is no point of it then, as what the organized religion or the institution religion is actually known for. These characteristics do come out, and these characteristics are discrimination against the women. And feminism, they just curtail the freedom, equal opportunity, control. They organized religion just control over the rights. And how do you get saved? How do you get out of this? It's just when you change that said jurisdiction, and this just leads to a mass exodus, and you are forcing people out of their comfort zone, out of where a person would ought to live all his life. You have That is the only choice left with people, and therefore it's just leading to a mass exodus, and people have their core freedom, their equal opportunity, that all we voice out our concerns for. That feminism is just giving just basic things of giving equal social, economical, financial freedom to people, to women, and empower them. And this is what you are set out to curtail. And let me tell you, there is no going against this religion. If you are there, you have to believe what is said, and these beliefs are generally put forth by the person who has listed them down, or by the person who preaches it. So from the eyes of the preacher, we have to, from a person who's preaching it, we have to listen to it, we have to agree. You cannot cross question. And these are opposing the basic ideologies of feminism, and these are misunderstood by some. You said how religion has a wide base. It of 85% of the people follow organized religion and follow a certain religion. I think on the contrary, if there is one fact misunderstood, 85% of the people will misunderstand that fact, and therefore it leads to a fallback. And I mean, they asserted facts about gender reforms, and said a point about goddess Kali, and but imagine, like, such these facts which are so ingrained and which are of sentiment to the followers, if these facts are misinterpreted, and they just fall, and because it is so ingrained and people follow it so sternly, then that just leads to backfall and a domino effect on each person. Now, you just have to follow the religious rules that are set in these organizations, and you just cannot go against that. Now, there is no say of women, how they said, of going hand in hand and taking, and trying to bring about a change together, and that's why that's the basis of their argument, to bring organized religion and feminism together. Let me tell you, there is no say for women in organized religions. The women are just sidelined. They're not just say, I think even their voting rights, their rights of movement, rights of education, everything, just the daily rights are curtailed. And then how would they even work with the clergy in these religious organizations to bring about a change then?
Thank you, speaker. Now I would like to invite the second speaker from the opposition to put their case forward. Speaker, please start whenever I'll start the timer.
Can I just take 10 seconds?
Sure.
We'll go in 3, 2, 1. On side opposition, we would like to highlight how the debate is not about religion versus feminism. It is about how, on our side of the house, we support, we are talking about how we want to bring gender reforms through religion and why it is better on our side of the house. There are, firstly, talking about the impact that religion has. There are so many people that are influenced by religion, that so many people who that religion impacts. And firstly, organized religion is there are we have religious heads of various all of these religions, and they have studied these scriptures for so that is their job, that is what they do. They have studied these scriptures, and why on our side of the house it would be better if we bring about gender reforms through religion, organized religion, is because these heads, religious heads, would be able to give examples, bring examples from these scriptures, from things that have already been talked about, and help portray and help spread the message of gender reforms, bring it to the masses, bring it to the people who so many people who follow religion, who listen to religious heads, to who like who for some of them their only their only exposure to a lot of things that happen in the world is through things that these religious heads say. So imagine the power that all of this has, the impact that this can have if these religious heads give examples of powerful examples from these scriptures. For example, like the first member of opposition pointed out, spoke about the example of goddess Kali, and I would also like to talk about how Mother Mary is regarded highly as the Holy Trinity, how Saraswati is the goddess of education, and so on. So many powerful examples that can be given to teach and bring awareness and make the women aware about all of these things, about their rights, about so many things that are going on. Secondly, organized religious supports karma, and and these religious heads, what incentive would these religious heads have to bring about, to spread messages that empower women, that spread that bring gender reforms, because they want what is best for society, and we as the feminist movement support them in doing so. Secondly, the first speaker of the first speaker of opposition pointed out, feminism is not just about women, it is intersectional, and the LGBTQIA community, or anybody who's not been given a chance at equality because of the patriarchal nature of society, comes under feminism. And majorly the LGBTQIA community has been largely normalized in religion. And also, like the first speaker of opposition pointed out, so many of these women who follow religion, who are religious, they are not going to leave their faith, they are not going to leave their religion. And if instead of just going, and also, like the first speaker of opposition pointed out, if you just go and talk about opposing organized religion, the entire conversation is going to be only and only about how this new movement that's come up is opposing organized religion, something that's been going on for so many years. Whereas on our side of the house, we are wanting to bring gender reforms through religion, which is why it's not going to sideline the feminist movement, or it's not going to push people away from the feminist movement, people who believe in religion and follow religion. For example, if you tell Hindus that temples had LGBTQ representation, they will believe it. They will believe it more than if just a feminist organization comes up and talks about the LGBTQIA community. Very, very proud to oppose.
Thank you, speakers. Now we'll be moving on with the concluding statements, starting with the proposition. Please note that you are not allowed to bring any new arguments here, and you will be given 2 minutes to conclude your statement. Proposition, please come and give your concluding statements.
So, in our case of the paradigm, we strongly believe that the topic of feminism should be kept out from organization, and each person is in their good space. I think uh, our movement is emboldening factors such as freedom to women, economic, social, financial freedom to women, and we ought to abstain from organized religion in these things, because as we said, organized religion never really gives a voice to women. I mean, they just the unrelenting stories about gender inequality. I mean, women are not allowed their freedom, the representative rights, job opportunities for women. I mean, their the rights for custody, divorce laws. I think these rights are just not given to women in when they are under the jurisdiction of an organized religion. And now about talking about how the opposition said that it's just not related to women, to a certain group, and it's an intersection of everybody. I think no, is feminism is also just not related to women. I think again here itself, our side of the paradigm is also open to all, and we have seen a number of growing men and people from the LGBT community to be a part of this movement. And the opposition never really answered to my questions about how the change is going to come first, and then how are we going to bring the oppressive behavior. They never really answered about why women are not really represented or given a voice there, and there was no rebuttal about there was no answer about also how are we going to change the current situation first. And they just spoke about what is going to happen after the current situation is solved. Therefore, we just believe that I think feminist movements should not be brought uh, anywhere in correlation with organized religion, and that's our case. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Now I would like to call upon the opposition to put forward their concluding statements. Please start whenever I'll start the timer.
So we on the side opposition, our policy is that we want uh, gender reforms in this society, but we want them through religion. Why? Why should we, as a feminist organization, do this? Because we want to spread feminist ideology, which religious people that are blinded by religion not uh, pay a heed to if we don't go through religion. And why is it better if we go through religion? Because people believe in religion, and we are highlighting aspects that are feminist, that have always been feminist in the religion. We are stressing on our ideas and our principles, things that are written in the religion. This brings about easy change. This brings about relatability. This constructs a person's faith in what we are saying. For example, if we just a feminist leader says that you should not discriminate against LGBTQ community, people will say that no, religion doesn't say so. But if we as a feminist organization go through religion and tell them, show them that temples in India had LGBTQ representation, there are characters, there are gods that you worship were had elements of both feminine and masculine energy, they will believe it. There will be a start of conversation in minds of religious people, which will not happen on their side of the paradigm, because they will see this as an attack on their religion. Which is why on our side of the paradigm, feminist ideology spreads faster, it is believable for people, and that is why we should support. Proud to oppose.
With that speech, we have come to the end of this debate. Chair, would you like to take some time before you give the verdict?
10 seconds for the score again. I'll just come back. Great, I hope everyone's here. Just quickly going over some general comments about how the debate functioned and what else was expected, and then moving on towards how I considered the entire debate and the fabric of the debate was considered on the right. I think some general things that you need to understand within this debate is understanding that there is a lot more consideration of understanding how interplay of different religions work within these structures. For example, how in feminist movement interacts with the religious movements as well as the organized religion. What exactly do you mean by organized religion? We do get some hints about how organized religions are structured or what they are essentially in the speeches by the first speakers. But then again, we need to then get a correlation as to how your arguments and points then correlate to these set principles of organized religion. What kind of challenges, what kind of metrics, what kind of harms are therefore extensionally there, right? So, moving on to the verdict in itself, I think the op takes this debate on a very narrow margin. The highlights of why this is so, I'll tell you in a bit, right? So, when you're looking at the entire structure of the cases between both the sides, one of the fundamental characterizations that we get from the prop is that the religion is somewhat a very stoic institution, that there is an institution which will always create patriarchal notions, and then there are certain problematic considerations which would then ultimately result that these institutions will not have the best fabric for promoting the feminist movement, right? But however, what problem this particular structure or what this particular line of argumentation has, that exactly you do not correlate how the feminist movement in a sense is problem is created, is given a very problematic contextualization in organized religion when there is space for some of the key developments which was highlighted in the ops points, right? So even you're telling me that there is a problem of institutional biasness and there's this problem of institutional non-adherence, there's also a chance that there's a lot more other incentives and a lot more other benefits that might come aboard with the proposition that organized religions go hand in hand with the feminist movement, right? Because in this justification, you understand that when you're going against an organized religion, as the op clearly highlights, there are a couple of other caveats that you need to maintain, that there will be a large pushback against your policies. How will people then get buy-in within your communal spaces? What does this look like for people who are religious but are also like to be part of the feminist movement, right? So I think within those structures, a lot more echo chambers are created and a lot more problematic narratives are then created where you fail to address them to your two substantive speeches, right? But then even when you're looking at the overbearing nature of religion, that religion creates patriarchal concepts, what kind of responses do we get from the op? So the op frames this debate in a very different perspective, right? They say that the feminist movement is something which needs a lot of buy-in and people need to have a lot of individuals to get acquainted with the feminist movement, right? And organized religion being added is, even when you're not considering, say, the fact that they said that the 85% of people are having are part of an organized religion or 15% religion, even when you're considering a significant population of people being part of organized religion, because as we know, everybody around the society is, and as an average reader you would know that there is a lot of religions that are there and there is a lot of buy-in within these religions for a different communal spaces, right? So when within these communal spaces there are a lot of characterization that patriarchy is problematic and there are narratives that might not enable individuals within these structures to adhere to the feminist movement, is it then to the benefit or harm of the feminist movement that these organized structures are then recapitalized, because otherwise you will have to recapture an entire market and then move people away from the notion of religion, and that is in itself a very problematic scenario, because then you create a nature of decisiveness between these individuals who want to be part of the feminist movement and want to also be part of the organized religion, but they do not have the ability to then exercise both, because then we do not have gender confirmation or requirements of promoting the feminist movement within the organized religion, right? So when these particular problems are there, that when you're going against organized religion, you get this entire force that are going against your movement, and then you also lose out on the ability for narratives to be developed within these spaces to change these notions, right? Because when you're looking at patriarchal mindset of organized religions, if you're not changing it today, then in the future, then again this remains a patriarchal institution, right? So when you're having the narratives or institutions moving towards change from within as a possibility, it's something that would be much more credited within the comparative of this debate, because you don't highlight to me in the proposition side how organized religions are something so stoic that that patriarchal notion would be something which will not be there in the longer run, right? Because even when we concede to the fact that patriarchy do exist within institutionalized religions today, is it then better off to then ditch these religious institutions completely and then move towards a completely different segment, or then to reform these institutions, which was something which was highlighted in the case of the opposition, right? So within all those structures, and you also analyze it, how are these individuals and better benefited as the feminist movement, right? Because number one, as again a general comment within the debate, you are debating as the feminist movement. So as the feminist movement, what is your entire objective is to bring more people into the fold, right? So in which side then this matter is addressed the best? Do you try and do this by ditching organized religion, or do you do this by, say, promoting the feminist movement within organized religion, but creating a space within organized religion which will be comparative to be beneficial to these individuals. So I think that clears it up in terms of how specifics were weighed in these particular notions and how the op took this debate over the proposition. Thank you for a great round. All the best for the other rounds that you have in the coming days. Thank you.
That was a great debate. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Chair, for joining us today. And happy Public Day to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
Republic,
Republic.
guys. Bye.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hiral Patel, today's presiding officer for your day 5 of Debatables 2.0 and event by Debating Society in collaboration with TEDxSomaiya. Parth will be chairing today's round. I would like the teams to introduce themselves and make it brief. Let's start with the opposition first. So, Speaker 1, could you unmute yourself and introduce?
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Ravina from FIBA studying in SK Somaiya College and I'll be the first speaker from the opposition team.
Thank you, Speaker. Can we have the second speaker from the opposition team?
Yeah, good evening everyone. I am Arya Deshpande from SK Somaiya College and I will be the second speaker from opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. The proposition, can we have the first speaker?
Good evening, everyone. This is Mr. Guys. My name is Prabhu Krishnan Gavande, and I'm from second year engineering. I'm a second engineering student in KSMI Institute of Engineering and Information Technology. Thank you.
All right, Speaker 2.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Shubham Agarwal from AIDS branch from KJ Somaiya Engineering College.
Okay, so the speaker two from both the teams, can you just fix your mic? It's you're not audible clearly. Anyways, so hello everyone. Now that we all are familiar with each other, let's proceed. Let me quickly walk you all through today's debating format in brief. The format that we'll be following today will be the Oxford format. Starting with the opening speeches from both the teams, where proposition goes first, followed by the opposition. Speakers, please know that you will have 4 minutes to put your arguments forward, after which you'll get exactly 15 seconds to wrap up your entire speech. Failing to do so would result in your bid not being considered. Then moving to the rebuttal round, where questions are being directed on the basis of your opening speeches, which would be followed by the next round, where the second speaker of each team gets exactly 4 minutes to make their point. And finally, ending today's debate by the final concluding round, where you wrap up today's debate without introducing any new subject into consideration. So, are we clear about this? Teams, do you have any doubts?
No,
Thank you.
all clear.
All
No.
right. So, can I have the first speaker from the proposition team? All right. Are you ready?
Wait. Am I clearly audible first? Like, that's the most important thing. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, yes. Yes, you are. So, speaker one, are you ready?
Good. Yes, I am ready. You can. Wait a second. Wait a second. Uh,
All right.
Wait a second. Wait a
So,
second. Wait a
speaker one from the
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
okay. So,
second. We begin?
proposition speaker one.
Yeah,
You can start on the count of
I
three,
am
two,
ready.
one, and go.
So good evening,
Start.
everyone. My name is Arjun Krishnan Gavande with my comrade Subham Agarwal. So, and we are with the motion that the House believes that economic growth is a solution to the climate change. So let me give you some information about the motion that is recently been released by the G20 countries. That is investing in climate is investing in growth. And that motion shows that together the growth and the climate agenda, rather than treating the climate as a separate issue, could add 1% of average economic output in G20 countries by 2021.
Excuse me.
And next,
Excuse me. Sorry to interrupt, but your voice is sort of not clear. Like the clarity in your voice is not there. I'm not able to follow your entire speech properly. Could you think about that?
wait a second, let me do something. Is there
Your
any
voice is
problem?
coming, but it's not. Yeah, the problem is like clarity. Like the words are not clear. Like your voice is properly coming without any like breaking in between. It's just like clarity is not there. I'm not able to follow through exactly.
There is no problem in internet. Hello.
Hello, is this like a
Hello.
problem with me only, or is it everyone not able to very like clearly differentiate between the words?
It was clear at the beginning, and now it is a little muffled. So, let him fix it.
All right, cool.
Wait a second, I will join. Sorry for the inconvenience. Sorry.
That's completely
Uh,
fine.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Is my voice clearly audible now?
yes, it's
Yes.
better.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right. So,
No
let me
problem.
restart the timer, and you can start with your speech again if the chair agrees with it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, so on the count of 3, 2, 1, and start.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Shardul Gawande from Debatable, and today we are with the motion that the House should go with the House should believe that economic growth is a solution to the climate change. Let me give you some information about the motion that has been released by the G20 countries. That is investing in climate is investing in growth. And that shows that bringing together the growth and climate agendas rather than treating climate as a separate issue. And it could add if we invest in if we invest in countries, it could add 1% of average economy output into G20 countries by 2021 and live 2050 by and lift 2050 output by 2.8%. If the economic benefits of avoiding climate change, impacts such as coastal flood or storm damage are factored, then the net increase will be around 250. Net increase to 2050 GDP would be nearly 5%. So, okay. Then many would argue that the increase in global temperature from the increase in global temperature from 1850 till the day, and many would argue it is because of economic growth. But for that, I would say the world has, we have the world has, as as species, we have evolved, and the big economies across the world are taking actions against climate change, and they are taking actions by bringing economic development and by investing in countries with low GDP. So how we can know how the economic growth can help us to beat climate change. Or it would be a solution to climate change. First, it can stimulate innovation and investment. In renewable energy, 40% of world electricity still comes from coal. So renewable energy can reduce emission and improve public health, and it will create new jobs in solar industry. So it will help. It is good for everyone's health, and it will also create jobs. And second is it will allow growing and using of more food per hectare. Climate thing is like climate change is a threat to achieving of a goal when it comes to crop yield. It pushes the price high and or it increases the food insecurity. So investing in agriculture will restore 25% of world's agricultural land, and it will also help in improve ending global improving hunger index. Third will be accelerating low carbon development in cities. Around half of the world's population, if we all know, like we all know, lives in cities, and this is expected to reach 70% or 10 billion people within 30 or 40 years. So this gives tremendous opportunity for like businesses. This provides tremendous opportunity to businesses to build low carbon, more resilient cities that can generate stronger and growth, improve quality, and provide improve. Hello, I'm audible, right? Okay.
You're audible
So
now.
not motorized and low emission transport, renewable energy and efficient.
Yeah, hi. Should I take Shardul on my speaker?
Yeah, if you can do that.
Yeah.
We invest.
Yeah, Shardul, you're not audible. Like for the last 30 seconds, you're not audible. Could you
Hello.
yeah, Shardul, for the last 30 seconds, you were not audible of your speech. Last 30 seconds of your speech, you were not audible.
Like I'm now audible.
It's still bad.
Hello.
Yes, it's clear now.
It's clear, right? It's clear, right? So where I mean where did I get disconnected? If you guys know.
You were talking somewhere about the population cities being like opportunistic for development, something like that.
Yeah, so okay. So you can speak or you can resume. So there is a tremendous opportunity to build businesses, to build a low carbon and more resilient cities, which will provide good quality life. If you in turn generate jobs, and all that stuff, and making long term investment in country with low economy it can create new jobs and lead to economic growth and development in new tech in the countries who have low GDP and low economy, and it can also give them a secure supply of energy. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right. So speaker one from the opposition team, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. So on the count of three, two, one, and start.
Today, I'll be opposing for the
Start.
motion. Today, I'll be opposing for the motion that economic growth is the solution to climate change. Economic growth so far has fueled global warming. Higher level of economic activity tend to go hand in hand with additional energy use and consumption of natural resources. Fossil fuels account for 80% of global energy, so energy consumption remains closely related to greenhouse gas emission and hence climate change. We are already seeing the economic impact of changing climate disasters. The climate disasters have cost North America 415 billion in last 3 years due to wildfires and hurricanes. But this could be avoided, right, if there was no pollution and no destruction of natural resources. The fourth National Climate Assessment published in 2018 and warned us that if we do not curb greenhouse gases emission and start to adapt, the climate change will seriously disrupt our economy. I can clearly say that melting of polar caps will rise global warming. This couldn't be helped if billionaires keep adding bucks in their pocket. Warmer temperatures, sea level rise, and extreme weather will damage. It will have a heavy impact on property, critical infrastructure, and human health, and also productivity. The negative affect sectors such as agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and tourism. Economic growth is achieved by industrialization, and industrialization leads to pollution and deforestation. If there is high pollution, people are going to get affected by disease like lung cancer, acute lower respiratory infection in children. Now, if people die or get sick by this, how is economic growth going to help them? There is there is a mass scarcity of resources like land, water. If these resources are used till their end just to fuel the economic growth, they will come to an end. Now, what about future? What about future generation? They have to live in a polluted world with garbage everywhere, polluted water, or even limited water. No land, no fertile land where crops could grow, as industrialization leads to seizing of farming lands. Economic growth is important, but it is not the solution for climate change because economic growth itself is causing global warming. Thank you.
All right. So this was a great opening round. Moving to the rebuttal round, you'll be having 7 minutes in total. Make sure to keep your questions short and crisp and directed as per the opening speeches. You're not allowed to cross question or ask follow-up questions in the debate. The round starts with a question from the opposition. Prop will take it up and they'll ask another question in turn. So are we clear about this? I won't be interrupting in between.
Yes.
Yeah, clear.
All right. Opposition, are you ready with your first question?
Yeah, I am. As
All
my
right. So on the count of three. Okay, on the count of three, two, one, and start.
as my opponent said in their speech that economic growth leads to job opportunities. Well, in my speech, as I have told that there are, industrialization leads to deforestation and all. So, can you tell me, jobs like fishermen or farmers, they lose their jobs because of industrialization. So, how come economic growth helps them?
Isn't it? It's not just about industrialization, it's about jobs in all sector. If you invest in companies of solar who are in renewable energy, it will definitely increase jobs. And and if you're talking about industrialization is leading to pollution of water, because of that farmers are getting affected. Let me tell you something. Government of our country are taking strict against such acts. They are they obviously there are such laws that which prevent industries from putting some harmful chemicals into water bodies. And obviously, and there are, and statistics says that 92% of consumers are likely to go for the environmentally and socially conscious brands. So I mean, so if we are also, if people are themselves are aligned towards companies who are environmentally and socially conscious, environmentally and socially conscious, I don't think so there would be any problem when it comes to industrialization.
Yeah, hi. So the next question will be, the opposition mentioned that the fossil fuels use up to 80% of the energy and it is necessary for us to adapt. How do you plan to adapt without the financial growth which is required for it? Excuse me, was I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you.
Using of like scarce resources like coal or fossil fuels, it is a scarcity, it is a scarce resources, and it will lead to an end if we just keep on using them. It is a limited resources, and we should use it in a limit. And because of fueling the economic growth, we shouldn't keep on using on it just for economic growth. It is a limited resources, and thus we have to use it in a limit. Uh, my next question will be, as my opponent said, that there are many government policies have been taken to curb climate change, but there are many diseases which are also spread, like contaminated water and air pollution, etc., and people get affected by them every year. And like according to uh, according to WHO report, millions of people die because of the because of sources of air pollution. So what are your views on that?
So that's what I'm talking about. Coal. You said that coal emissions are gonna, carbon emission will lead to air pollution. So that's the reason why you need to invest into renewable energy, which will help you to improve the quality of life, across the world. And the question that you talked about, like the investments opportunity and investment opportunities. Like, let me tell you something. If you invest into renewable energy sectors, it will definitely help you to improve the job opportunities, which will in turn increase the economic growth. So that's your answer.
Yeah, so opposition mentioned a statement called there is a mass scarcity of resources. So how do you plan to move on to renewable resources, so that we can conserve energy without economic growth?
Well, it is indeed necessary to use the renewable sources, and economic growth is important. But using heavy resources, like using extreme limited resources, wouldn't help it. Using coal and other resources for economic growth, it won't fuel up the economic growth. Like, just because we need I'm sorry. Can I ask the next question?
Sure.
As my opponent said in their speech, like in 2050, there will be, a net increase in economic growth. Well, in 2050, we can also see that these scarce resources will get, like, it might get end at that time, and also there would be, higher pollution rate and etc. So, how come economic growth will help us if
Yeah,
if there isn't a proper environment for us?
So that's what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying you should use coal for economic development. I'm saying you need to invest into renewable energy for economic development. Okay, and if we not if we will not invest in such sectors which will increase in economic development, then obviously, let's just say we do not invest in these sectors and there is no economic growth, then there are going to be damages. Because if you see, earth is definitely heating up. There is climate change. Climate change is very real. So if you don't invest the money, there are going to be the damages worth of that money or more than that. So I don't think so, that makes sense. So makes sense that you should lead you should not invest in particular sector just because You don't think that you think that there is going to be scarcity of resources. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, to add to the point my partner said, uh, now in 2002, when we have so many sources of renewable energy and billionaires like Elon Musk coming forward for climate change, then by 2050, I'm very much sure that our economic growth will be capable enough to handle our climate change. Now, my next question to the opposition will be, you mentioned that fertilizers have been a major cause for our downgrade. I would like you to know that. No, my question will be, how do we make sure our agriculture productivity increases without going towards economic growth?
Well, agriculture lands are seized because of industrialization. Just because of having industries, people follow deforestation or even seizing the farming lands.
Right. So, is this it for the questions? Games. Okay. Anyways, this is our second rebuttal round, and we have our second speaker from both the teams revising the rules once again, starting with proposition, then followed by opposition with their speeches. You get 4 minutes with 15 seconds where you wrap everything up. If you exceed that, it won't be considered for grading. All the best. Can I have the second speaker from the proposition team?
Yeah, just
Just a
maybe
second,
to
moderator.
clarify, am I?
Just a second. So it's like
Okay.
4 minutes.
But your voice is echoing.
Yeah, Parth, go ahead.
The moderator, the additional 15 seconds is provided for them to like finish the sentence, right?
Yeah, I do take that into consideration. If they want extra time, I do consider it.
Now they just
You
add
want
it
me
on
to
to
add that up in the
yeah,
timer?
yeah, just add it on the timer because then you won't have to like take it into account separately or time it separately. It's just easier. Just
All right, cool.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. So, speaker, are you ready?
Yeah, am I clearly audible?
Yes, you are. Okay, so on the count of three, two, one, and start.
Okay, hello, I am Shubham Agarwal. I am the second speaker from the proposition for that climate change, economic growth is the solution for climate change. Now, as you noticed in the rebuttal round, the opposition clearly failed to answer the question about the how we will adapt after the extinction of the resources currently present. Now, the opposition clearly mentioned the fact that 80% of our energy resources have already been used, and in next 10 years, all the natural resources will end. Without economic growth, our country, not only our country, our world cannot move forward. Uh, cannot move forward. Now, faster growth will mean higher income, and higher income will mean people being more aware about climate change. Greater wealth means agriculture productivity, freeing up land for forest to grow, as well as speedier progress towards developing and cheaper non-fossil fuel technologies. These trends can act synergistically uh, uh, to ameliorate man-made climate change. Now, the wealthier the people become, the more they will demand to get improved about environmental quantity via regulation and market mechanism that promotes cleaner and less resource-intensive process and technologies. Now, I'm going to give you an example. For example, in since 1980, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide air pollution has come down to 85, 80, and 60% respectively. Even as in the US, GDP has more than doubled. Uh, I know these are all facts, but these are facts which indicate how much how much economic growth has gone along without disturbing climate, without disturbing these major pollution, sulfur, poisonous gases. Now, coming to my next point, which was repeatedly mentioned by the opposition, was the agriculture, the land, the fertilizer. To explain on it, boosting agriculture productivity in poor countries like India and Nigeria will mean more land for forests. Expanding forest will soak up more carbon dioxide, thus slowing global warming. Right now, cereal yields in India and Nigeria uh, per hectare is 4 times less than that of US. Now, moving on to my next point, faster economic growth provides the wherewithal to spare innovation and create cheaper and more efficient technology so that the climate change can go hand in hand along with economic growth. uh, Now my next point will be economic growth supplies the capital needed to fund the global non-carbon energy transformation, which is not mandatory to deploy current versions of renewable energy. Now I'm going to start with I'm going to state the most basic fact, that is the highest number of activists for climate change come from USA. And guess what? USA is a developed country, a country whose economic growth is higher among all those against the world. To illustrate further, you can see some people said that COVID-19 has helped for climate change, but one should know that reduction in greenhouse gases resulting from restriction on economic activity are only temporary. Once normalcy returns, emissions will start climbing again, and the best lasting solution to climate change is to depend on finding ways to achieve emission reduction while the economy is growing, not finding ways to slow economic growth. The COVID 19 pandemic has shown the personal consequences of reduced economic activity. Now, it is not just large, faceless corporations affected, but real people such as you and me who are losing their jobs and incomes. In fact, the most vulnerable members of society often bear the brunt of economic shocks. Thank you.
Can I have the speaker two from the opposition team?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Anyway, so
Am I
let's
am I
start on the
clearly
count.
am I clearly audible? I just want to ask because I was
Yes,
having
yes, you
network
are.
issues.
Now you are. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So let's start on the count of three, two, one, and start.
Yeah, so I would like to ask what is exactly economic growth? It means the rise in the income of population of a country or a region, which rise happened because of economic activities which are largely based on manufacturing of products which are being consumed by population. These products are being manufactured by the industry which are using natural resources, and those products are not mostly in line with the environment risk. Consumption and production both are risky for the environment. I would like to ask, I don't, I saw one of my opposition teammate raised a question about wealthier people. Economic growth tends to wealthier people. But I would like to say that as the income of the an individual increases, there also increase in the services such as using more and more public vehicles and all, which are
Speaker, your voice is cutting.
more leads to the
Speaker, your voice is not clear.
environment, which are more
Speaker, I think you're having
leads
network
to
issues.
the pollution,
Speaker one, can you contact your team member regarding
which
this?
affects the
Yeah, just a
climate change.
I
And
have paused the
again,
timer so she can start from whenever she started fumbling.
hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're clear now. Your voice is clear now. Okay, so I'll just start the timer for a minute. Pause it. Okay,
I think the speaker
speaker.
was talking about increased
Okay, yeah, sure.
services consumption. That's why I think you
All
got
right.
network.
On the count of yeah. So, speaker. Anyway, so I'll start the countdown from the place I left it. So, speaker. On the count of three, two, one, and start. Speaker. Is he there?
Speaker 2 from opposition side. Are you there? Can
I
speaker
think
one
she
please
got
call
disconnected.
back?
She's having network issues. She's fixing it.
Okay.
Saying that the network issues are repetitive, we also shift to Gmeet, I guess.
Alright, so I'm putting a Gmeet in the room to query, so if you all could join there. Is the link visible to everyone?
Yes, yes.
Alright, so I would request you all to join on the Gmeet.
Requested for joining. Can you please accept?
Uh, just a second.
Just a second, let me see.
Yeah, I'm not able to join Google Meet. Could you please check?
Alright, just a second.
Yeah, sure.
Check it now.
Alright, so now are you able to join the Google Meet?
No, it's still saying it is asking to join in.
Alright, because I'm not getting any permissions here, so could you try from your Somaiya mail?
Yeah, I'm trying from my Somaiya mail only.
He'll tell him to actually, I think he is trying to apply the link. Tell him to just apply the code. I think.
Yeah, let me try that.
Sorry, not yet. I'm trying. Yes, I am. minute. One. It's still saying asking to join.
Feel like everyone's here. Okay. Chair, what's your final decision for the speaker two from the opposition team? Does she like continue or repeat the whole speech?
I think there was like a 3 minute mark remaining, right, for her speech.
No. Yeah, it was 2 minutes and 52 seconds.
Yeah, so we can just continue it from 3 minutes, I guess. Like,
Okay, cool.
right. So, speaker, your 1 minute 15 seconds were over of your speaker time. You can resume directly later on. Is that cool, speaker?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm extremely sorry for this interruption.
Okay, no, it's totally fine. Okay, so you can start on the count of three, two, one, and start.
Okay, I was there in the point that the economic growth leads to the income in and it leads to the increase in income of an individual. That one of my opponent team member has raised an issue, that is, as economic growth increases, the people become more and more wealthier. That leads to the consumption of more and more services, like using more and more public services. So they also leads to increase in the climate change, and it leads to increasing population. So because of the economic growth, the overall income of an individual increases, which leads to the increase in the consumption of services. Then next point I would like to mention here is, due to behavioral patterns, industry is developing, and it is using more and more non-eco-friendly factors for the manufacturing. These factors are extracted from raw resources, which are very much hazardous to the natural resources. The next point I would like to mention here is that agricultural, yeah, one of the main thing is agricultural sector, which leads to the
Hi, speaker, you're not audible again, and you're muted. You're still
now
not
am I
audible. Yeah,
yeah
you now you're audible. Okay, continue.
okay. So in agricultural sector, because of the more and more crop yield, the farmers are using lots of fertilizers, which leads to the
Speaker, you're not audible again. Speaker, you're having some network troubles again. You're not audible. All right, the speaker has left the meeting.
If the problem is persisting, can the other speaker just finish off the speech?
Yeah, if that's okay. Speaker one from opposition team, are you okay with that?
Um, yeah, okay.
Okay, so coordinate with your team member and please continue.
It's fine. I'll just say the conclusion now.
All right, so just a second, let me start the timer again. Okay, so start.
It won't matter if your country is developed country or underdeveloped country. If the world will sink in if we keep on using these scarce resources and just of growing economic growth. Because economic growth is not the solution. In fact, it is causing global warming. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speaker. Finally, moving to the last part of our debate today, I would request both the teams for their concluding speeches, starting with the proposition, followed by the opposition, each team getting exactly 2 minutes. If exceeding the time limit, it won't be considered. So, do we have any doubts about this?
No.
Okay, so moving on, proposition speaker, are you ready for the concluding speech?
Just a second, please.
All right, and please let me know if you can, if my screen is visible to you.
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay,
Okay.
so whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so three, two, one, and start.
Okay, so coming to the conclusion, first of all, it does matter if your country is developed or non-developed, because developed countries, as I already illustrated, are much more ahead in climate change. Now, moving to my first point, just as cell phones enabled poor countries to skip over landline telephone infrastructure, economic development coupled with increasingly cheap solar panels attached to inexpensive high-efficiency energy storage systems, including batteries, could help them bypass centralized fossil fuel plants and power grids. To truly address climate change, responsible policymakers should select courses of action that move humanity from slow to high growth trajectories, especially for the poorest developing countries. This includes honest bureaucracies, the rule of the law, free market, and strong property rights, and democratic governance. Historically, economic growth has brought many benefits to society, including lifting billions of people out of poverty worldwide. Without growth, we would not have seen myriad of health innovations such as heart bypass operations, vaccines for devastating diseases, and antibiotics. Strong economies, which are from developed countries, can afford to invest in research and development and have well-developed private sector financing to commercialize and distribute new products. Other innovations that have become critical to our daily lives, such as cell phones, cars, and dishwashers, would not exist without the drive of private companies to grow. A climate change is itself an economic risk, a risk that is growing over time. With climate change, we are already seeing the devastating impacts of wildfires and flooding, and the growing impact of health waves. To reiterate, my two major points would be economic growth provides us with financial freedom to move towards those renewable sources, and the second major point would be it provides us with the technology so that we don't create any more pollutions, which the major example is electrical vehicle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, speaker. The conclusion speaker from the opposition team, are you ready? Opposition team.
She's not in the meet, my partner.
Would you be comfortable concluding for her?
No, she'll just join in a minute if that's fine.
All right.
If the other speaker's having issues, I think the first speaker can like finish off giving the conclusion. It's fine.
All right, speaker one, are you comfortable with it? Speaker one.
Um, yeah, I guess.
All right, so on the count of 3, 2, 1, and start.
So, as I've already been saying, that economic growth is not solution for climate change because it is causing it. Government leaders are currently debating whether the country can afford the Green New Deal, an ambitious plan to address climate change or something like that. We cannot afford it. We will have to pay for climate breakdown one way or another. It makes sense to spend money now to reduce emission rather than wait until to pay a lot more for the consequences. It is cliche, but it is true, said a Nobel Prize winner, economist Joseph Stiglitz, a professor of Columbia University. As I already said in my speech, that it cost 415 billion in last 3 years due to wildfire and hurricanes. These are the consequences of the natural disasters which the economic growth has caused. And it will keep on increasing if we just focus on the money rather than focusing on the natural resources or our environment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speaker. So this sums up our whole leaks for the day. Now I would like to thank both the teams for such an insightful and heated debate. Both the teams did an amazing job and sit tight for your results. Now, Chair, would you like to take a moment before you announce your final verdict?
I think I'm ready with the verdict.
All right.
Are we sure like the other speaker cannot join us from the opposite?
Speaker one, are you sure that the second member won't be able to join us today?
Yeah, she won't because
All
she's
right.
not picking up my call.
Okay, so Chair, you can continue.
All right. All right, sure. Just give me 1 sec. Yeah. Is that cool?
Yes, yes.
All right. So firstly, just a few general comments about the motion, and I think like what the motion espouses, and like just like some comments about that. I think the motion talks about economic growth being a factor, or like the consequence of economic growth, and the parallels being drawn directly towards the impact that is climate change. Um, I think with regards to such a motion, there's been a certain lack of understanding as to what exactly are you like defining impacts of, because I think the upside was clearly like in the majority of the cases trying to tell me the impact of climate change, and I think it's not the purview of this debate to like go into the depths of what the climate change impact is. I think we all understand that climate change has impacts, and I think it can be generalized to an extent to say that sure, you'll have sea levels rising, polar ice caps melting, you're going to have pollution in in the air, etc., etc. I think these are the impacts which are like I think clearly even accepted by the proposition side. So they are not a matter of this debate. What is a matter of this debate is to say what exactly is economic growth and what are its impacts. And I think in this regard, I think both the houses have made a very like poor job of understanding what economic growth entails and how exactly it's impacting climate change. But having said that, I think the verdict is that the proposition bench wins. More of a technicality and a very small margin of victory, which being the kind of characterization that they go on talk about renewable energy and how it's not about what renewable energy is, but just because like renewable energy can only be is only accessible to countries like developing countries if they have that economic like acumen to like have those renewable energy resources. And I think this was the major consensus from the proposition side, which completely went unrebutted. And I think the opposition side needs to like understand that in a debate, like you guys have to contest each other's points. You just cannot forcibly defend your own point without questioning the other side, right? And I think the opposition really needs to understand this. Other than that, I think the proposition bench made quite a fair case in the sense that they talked about how growth and climate change are sort of related, and like climate change is like an economic crisis, or like it's at least an economic risk, as to like how they painted. And I think the way that the proposition bench goes about this is talking about how economic growth beats climate change because of the technological changes that are coming forth as a result of economic growth. So I think in the sense of characterization of what exactly economic growth is, I think both sides have given me like next to nothing in terms of what exactly means economic growth. But at least the prop bench is at least telling me that as a result of economic growth, you're going to have certain technological growth, which would like then go on to talk about renewable energy resources, how now they are the way forward. So I think the goal and purpose and burden from proposition basically was to prove that if we achieve renewable energy resources and we are able to replace them with the existing fossil fuel infrastructure, I think we are going to stop climate change. And I think this burden, like to a huge extent, for all practical purposes, went unchallenged from the opposition side. And because of this, I think this debate goes to the proposition side. Um, with regards to contribution from opposition, right? I think the second speaker was going along a little bit of a good track, saying that how economic growth, like I think it came a little bit late in the debate exactly what economic growth was, but it did, right? They talked about how it is a means like economic growth can be achieved because economic growth itself is a like in terms of manufacturing industries, industrialization, like if you have more manufacturing products and if you like manufacture products just to appease a huge volume of population, you're anyways going to be like leading to a that is increased services and b increased consumption. So I think in the case of increased consumption, they like the opposition talks about how this increased consumption will mostly lead to increased demand, and increased demand would then like make sure like force the companies to increase production, etc., which will again lead to overuse and exploitation of resources for manufacturing purposes, again leading to climate change. But I think this is a very basic argument because of which, like even if I were to like take in its very basic meaning, I don't think it challenges any of the like arguments being put forth by the opposite proposition bench, because I think the proposition bench gives me a good bit of analysis talking about how the world moving forward has to like adapt to technological changes, and technological changes are mostly going to be brought about as an impact of economic growth. I think with regards to that, I think when the opposition does not talk about what exactly are the spaces being created with regards to economic growth which are more and more detrimental towards climate change, I think those issues not being highlighted, I think it generally gives me a case of a net neutral opposition bench, whereas the proposition bench is giving me a delta positive, so as to suggest that there's going to be some sort of development upon the renewable sides. And this development is mostly spearheaded by faster economies. And I think certain kinds of impact I think the proposition bench were trying to make was like a how cheaper renewable energy resources will be accessible to the developing countries, and b how richer people will be able to question the respective governments for more implementation. While I agree on the first point, I don't think the second point makes a lot of sense. Is to say that richer people don't really give a shit about environment. They care about money. Sure, like obviously they can, like for public purposes, can care about environment. But the idea is that when a person is made rich through like, for example, a thermal power plant using coal to generate electricity, or just another emission plant, for example, in marble emission, like in Delhi, you have a lot of emission plants, right, which consume a lot of, which do give out a lot of polluted emissions. So basically, the idea is that the current lobby, the no like policy making processes, right, the current lobby who gets rich through the sale of coal, fossil fuels, oils, etc., petroleum, I think these are huge lobbies, and they will be like obviously not they are the ones who are the major they are the ones who are the major actors, and they're not going to be at all infected about what exactly their impacts are towards climate change. Obviously, they understand that it's climate change, but they're not going to sacrifice their livelihood just so that they can get an climate change. And I think this structure is something that the opposition bench really needs to bring out in this debate, right? Because I think going it further into constructive, the opposition really needs to tell me what exactly economic growth looks like in the current world, in the sense that you have lobbying from extensive powers like. In the United States, you have a completely fossil fuel like lobby which makes sure that fossil fuels are still under consumption. For example, in petroleum extraction, petroleum refining, edible oil refining. I think these are certain things which has a huge lobby inside the government benches, and these lobbies make sure that renewable energy resources does not become the central idea in the public eye. But more important than that, I think the opposition needs to characterize the debate in the sense that renewable energy is like a very very small part of this issue, and is a very very small part of the economic growth scenario, because it is vastly inaccessible to majorities of the countries. You only have like probable sources for replacing fossil fuel energies in like maybe one or two countries, that to like Scandinavian countries, right? In like especially in US, China, India, countries which are major democracies or like just major polluters on earth. They don't have even a replacement for overutilization of one fossil fuel, right? So I think the opposition needs to characterize in such a way that sure you can come up with renewable energy, but that is renewable energy is not a part of economic growth. Economic growth entails companies which will protect their own rights going forward, companies which like nations not being able to give utilizing more money for their own like growth projects, infrastructure projects, as like instead of utilizing that money to provide grants towards further energy development or further energy conservation efforts. I think that is where the main impetus of this debate lies. So as to say, what is the metric of this debate, I would say is that as a direct impact of economic growth, what is the idea that the current actors can do in order to invest more in climate energy? Which is to say, for example, that private companies, if the economic growth, like because economic growth basically means GDP growth, right? It basically means getting more profit. So if the state government or national government, whatever, focuses more on providing institutional grants towards renewable energy resources or green energy, or like gives subsidies to green companies. I think that's the picture we are looking at in the opposition paradigm over here, wherein the economic growth is not at the forefront, rather climate change is at the forefront. And when you have that kind of thing, that is when I think you can actually spearhead renewable energy growth, instead of what like it being on the fringes right now and only a few actors, only a few nations having even the kind of access that is required to have a net carbon zero percent climate. And I think even from the proposition bench, right, I think you need to tell me that economic growth has its own disadvantages, but without economic growth, there is no incentive for companies to even like act out on public demand, right? You need to tell me that sure, you may give out like because it is a debate in the regards of harms versus benefits, like what exactly will be the harms in case where economic growth is like perpetrated, and what is the worst case situation, what is the best case situation in these cases. For example, when economic growth is at the forefront, you're going to have industries vying for more profits, right? And if you're able to like able to create a space or create a paradigm or viewpoint, a major viewpoint, so to speak, wherein the public has to take acceptance of the climate change movement. I think in that situation, you create a public demand for climate change. I think if you have economic growth in collaboration with public demand for climate change and net zero carbon emission or green energy growth, I think it's that ideal world wherein companies then have to provide for that demand, right? In like for example, creation of houses wherein the carbon neutrality, creation of infrastructure, for example roads, buildings, houses, etc., where the emission, like carbon neutral emissions are being created, like highlighting of issues, because if you have more impetus, if there is more demand from environmental climate change, you're going to have more like attention being given to it. For example, if more attention is being given to let's say an NGO who is clearly advocating for cutting back on emissions and creating more stricter emission rules for industries, I think that's when when you cater to that demand, as a form of catering to that demand, the government has to, or the government or the private industry has to make sure that the rules are followed strictly. So I think that is the situation, and that is the kind of impact that was a proposition bench could have run in terms of economic growth in being created in the space of increasing demand for mitigation of climate changes. But with regards to how the debate was done, I think it was a good debate. As I said, the margin of victory was small because it was mostly on a technical basis as to how which side was able to justify that their impact has a little bit of a better impact, it's comparatively better than the other side. But yeah, are there any questions regarding the verdict?
No, there is no question regarding the verdict. But like, how do you think like we should improve when it comes to framing an argument, framing a constructive speech?
I think you need to paint the picture better. You need to paint a better picture of the world that we live in right now, because all of us know that there are like renewable energy resources are like very costly. For example, when you talk about even like let's say solar power plants, right? or like wind energy or like hydroelectric energy. I think you need to tell the government, you need to tell the panel of adjudicators that the level of like technological progress that we have right now is absolutely minimal, and whatever we do have is absolutely inaccessible on majority of its part. So what we want economic growth for is basically like a fine tunement of economic growth, which is taken into direction by this house into the direction of climate change mitigation. For example, you tell me that we want to create more economic growth, but we want to create that demand in the like eyes of the public, in the eyes of the consumer, and in that fulfillment of the demand, we will have economic growth as a result. So I think the kind of framework that you guys could have done was a little bit better. In terms of burden, I think you need to like highlight what the actors are. For example, you have environment like private lobbies who are like just lobbying for their own survival, right? For example, petroleum companies, as I said, they're lobbying for their own rights of survival. So when you create a demand in the public eye, I think it forces the government to make sure that sure the lobbying is still gonna be present, but it limits the kind of impact that your lobbying that the lobbying will have. When for example you have more grants being given to renewable energy resources, for example, when you have a like complete market wherein you can have the progress of the kind of technology that we have today. For example, consumables, right? Immediate consumables. We have solar consumables, which are in effect highly used in countries close to the equatorial countries. For example, southern India, you have Australia, Africa. I think this burden seeking was something that you could have done better from your side. But also, like, yeah, like the more creation of demand is there, the more you can highlight it in your speeches regarding economic growth.
Yeah, hi Parth, thank you for the criticism. I wanted to ask that previously we have been advised to structure our speech better. Uh, like, can you explain to me today in my speech where should I have mentioned what point?
Shubham, you are the first speaker, right? From side
No,
proposition.
second speaker from proposition.
Second speaker, sorry. Yeah. So in terms of structure, you need to like start off. Okay, so a very basic structure is to firstly, like for any government or opposition bench, is to first paint the picture of, like, we call it framework. What exactly fuels your argument and why exactly is it justified? Then you need to like clarify in your structure what exactly are you trying to prove, like what exactly is the issue that you identify in this debate. The government bench could identify that economic growth is not enough right now, and that is the reason why we're seeing climate change. Like even that could be a burden. So that's like basically the kind of biggest issue that you're trying to say, trying to prove. Then I think in terms of argumentation, your argumentation needs to be a little bit more logical and coherent in terms of providing direct impacts which contribute towards fulfillment of your burden. For example, when you give out arguments like there will be more population. More population will mean like we'll need more ideas of like green cities being involved. I think the kind of impact that you're trying to provide here is the demand of like the potential demand of future citizens in a country, and like that's the kind of demand that you're trying to perpetrate, but you don't give me enough analysis to why those cities need to be green. Like even climate change exists today, there are still many people are going to go like against it, but why exactly does the incentive lie for a company or like a government to create a green city, right? Because sure, like you can not because of just climate change, right? Because if climate change was the first priority, you will not be seeing the lax implementation of emission rules, etc. Like all the kind of examples that the opposition side also
Yeah,
gave. So you need to link your impacts properly back to what exactly you're trying to solve. So in your case, I think you were trying to say the proof is renewable energy is the biggest output of economic growth, and it can never be achieved without economic growth. So I think the best way to go forward with this would have been to say that um, economic growth is important for accessing renewable energy resources. For example, so to speak, the hydroelectric power plants are very like expensive in case to build, so you need funds to build that, and the government needs funding to build that, and that is going to come in terms of economic growth, like profit taxing, etc., etc. So vis-a-vis, that's also something you can do. But also like in terms of private actors, the opposition bench could also, like both the benches could do a much more better job of trying to identify what the like private actors incentive over here would be. If you create like economic growth as the initiative, then like it's like a lot of scope here for characterizing private actors.
Yeah.
So in terms of like structure, just make sure that you're clear in terms of speaking what exactly that you want to prove, how exactly are you going about proving it, and then moving according to your next argument.
Could you use same feedback to me? Like, what should I improve in? I'm the first speaker from the proposition. Shardul.
Shardul, I need to you need to being the first speaker, you need to obviously present a case first before giving out arguments. So you need to identify what exactly are the issues currently that the economic growth is facing. Um, for example, you can just go ahead and make certain agreements saying that yes, industrialization happened, but we are not in the age of industrialization. Industrialization happened quite a while back. The kind of issue that we are facing right now is a issue of transition from fossil fuels towards renewable energy, and that transition is something that we as proposition bench wants to achieve. And the only way we can achieve that transition is by providing more impetus on higher economic growth, because higher economic growth, as well as strict implementation of emission rules, etc., is something that will provide even more scope, even more demand for renewable energy products. And that is how the renewable energy products will enter the mainstream. And that is how we will transition from a primarily fossil fuel based world towards a renewable source energy world. So make sure that you're, creating the case well. Secondly, I think you need to provide who the stakeholders are in this debate. Is it just people? Is it just climate change? Is it just private actors who are there? It's like there is no clearly defined stakeholder from your part, because of which it's difficult to understand that these impacts, even if you're providing these impacts, who are they impacting and in what capacity. So I think you need to be a bit more careful on what exactly your stakeholders are and how to go about protecting them in your arguments.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess that's it. Thank you guys. Good debate. Bye bye.
Thank you, Ravina, for
Thank
the
you,
debate.
guys.
It
Thank
was a
you.
lovely
It was
debate.
it was good to meet you guys. Ravina, you were really good. Congrats. Thank you.
All right, congratulations, speaker. We'll see you in the next round. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you so much, viewers, for viewing this debate today. It was a really heated one. We did have some network issues, but we'll do better next time. So, also, please keep watching us and thank you. Have a good night. Bye.